Hi ladies and gentlemen, Murunur Evenberg here. The topic that I'm going to discuss in this video is whether the notion of selling your soul to the devil, that whole cliche, whether that really exists. The short version is yes. You can check out the article in the description below for those of you that watch this video directly. I discussed the matter in detail in that article, but as usual, I'm going to elaborate from a different perspective, or I'll at least try to prevent myself from repeating the content that I stated and the content that I basically denoted in the article itself, because I hate stuff like that. I don't want to be repeating what I'm saying. In any case, the simple answer is yes. The so-called cliche of making a deal with the devil in order to get what you want does exist. It does exist, period, okay? Making a deal with the devil does exist. The devil doesn't exist in itself, as I already stated in a previous video. In one of my previous videos, the devil doesn't exist. God, people are so stupid. But spirits do exist, and it is possible to make a deal with certain spirits in the sense of selling a part of yourself or offering yourself up for being that spirit's slave. Yes, stuff like that does exist, unfortunately. Or not unfortunately, there are people or what are beings that are supposed to pass for people, I call them vermin, that engage in things like that, that are so greedy or so desperate for anything that they are willing to offer themselves up in every possible way or every way imaginable. And even when it comes to selling parts of themselves or offering themselves up for slavery, it's basically like pimping yourself out or hooking. This is basically the astral version of being a hooker, or the occult version of being a hooker, or pimping yourself out to a spirit. The thing that Westerners are most familiar with, and I'm sorry, by thing I mean the system or the case where this is the case in itself, selling your soul to the devil. The most common thing that you'll hear amongst Western practitioners, people that engage in the occult or something, is the Grand Grimoire, like I already stated in the article. In a Grand Grimoire, in short, the Grand Grimoire is a magical workbook that basically gives instructions for working with the fallen angels Lucifer and Lucifuture of Okal, and basically summoning them via forceful or coercive means. By basically summoning them by force, you'd have to obtain a bunch of material, and you'd have to commit to a bunch of difficult tasks and stuff like abstaining from sex or not even coming into contact with people for an extended amount of time, blah blah blah, going to live in the forest or in the woods, deep in the woods, you name it, all of that stuff. You'd have to do a bunch of, figuratively speaking, impossible things or highly far-fetched things in order to get things done. And in short, they would lead you to treasure, they would make you rich and wealthy and all of that, and they would give you whatever you desire, figuratively speaking, well, literally speaking, not figuratively, or something, at least something similar to that. In any case, your desires, regardless of what your desires would be fulfilled. Again, please, you'll have to excuse me, I'm not caught up on all the details of the grimoire in every little itty bitty detail. No, I'm not familiar with any of that. I do have a copy of the Grand Grimoire. A copy of that can be found in the article also, that I link, to which the link is below in the description. So you guys can view or download a copy of that called the Grand Grimoire, and you can read it for yourself. It is in cursive writing, or not cursive, but it's in a certain kind of word font that can be difficult to understand or to read. So you'd have to strain yourself slightly to read everything. But in any case, it is readable. And in return, Lucifer or Lucifuture of Okal would ask you for 50 years of your life. So you'd basically have to give them 50 years of your physical life, your physical body and your astral body, to do it as you please, as they please. So the realistic version would be, if you were to carry out this operation, when you were 20 years old, you'd be able to enjoy whatever they gave you for maybe 30 years. assuming that you live to 100, and then for the last 50 years, you would basically own them. They would basically own you. They would basically own you, and I'm sorry, they briefly distracted me. The two of them are here right now, Lucifer and Lucifuge. I rarely engage with Lucifuge, but that's okay. I have my reasons for that. Yeah, so that is basically it. And they basically possess you. You'd be their property, astrally and figuratively speaking, and physically speaking. Sorry, as physically and astrally. And yeah, I mean, any person can see that this is a ludicrous and ridiculously bullshitty deal. No sane person would do that. And I also, again, for the second or third time, I state that in the article too. You have to be incredibly stupid or desperate to undertake something like this, to be willing to go through all of those things in order to do this. And it's basically like completing some kind of Olympic-based obstacle course in order to pimp yourself out. You went through all of that just to pimp yourself out? Nah. Or you're that desperate, or you have some other situation going for you. And the notion of selling your soul, again, like I said, it doesn't exist, okay? Selling your soul is like selling who you are. You are your soul. You have an astral and a physical body as an attachment, but again, you can't sell your soul. Your soul is pure, and it is always going to be pure. Your soul can't be corrupted. Your soul is literally the divine within you, and your soul is who you are. Once your physical and your astral body fade away, then which they will, once they die off, then you'll simply be who you are again, your soul. Again, your soul is who you are. So the very notion of selling yourself is not possible. Okay? It's not possible, period. And yeah, and unfortunately it exists in other cultures too, okay? Other kind of people also engage with that. In my current location, you've also got these Indians. By Indians, I mean Hindus, for example. And I've seen this with my own eyes, okay? No, by Indians, I mean Hindus, okay? Not Native Americans. The Indian population here, you have more than your fair share of Hindus here that basically commit to these kinds of acts. They basically engage in deity worship. They worship their false gods and their false idols, and in return for wealth, most of them are greedy as fuck, so all they care about is money. And yeah, these idols give it to them. The drawback is that whenever something goes wrong, whenever they break their contract, again, it's literally like it's like taking out a lease on a house, for example. Okay, you get the house, but this is what you're going to have to do. You're going to have to pay your rent every month, and this lease is valid for a year. If you violate your contract, then you're literally in violation of your contract. You basically you performed contract breach. Okay, you breached your contract, and you're going to have to be held accountable. And whatever conditions are outlined in your contract, it's the same as that thing. Okay? It's the same as this. If you engage in something like this, right, you worship some false god or some infernal spirit, you name it, that is willing to accept your terms. For example, I will worship you and I will give you my firstborn child, or something revolting to that extent, or I will literally give you my arm, for example, my physical arm. I'll chop off my physical arm for you in return for wealth, and the deity agrees to it, that spirit agrees to it, and he or she or it says, okay, yeah, sure, no problem, you're going to have to worship me then for 10 years, and after 10 years I get your arm, and every month you'll have to just make a small offering to me as a token, basically. Let's just say a bottle of milk or something, just something simple. This is just an example. If you're a breach of that contract, right, that's that agreement, you don't offer milk for a month. If you forget or something similar, then you've got a huge problem, okay? And I've seen this with my own two eyes. I've had neighbors that, when I grew up, that did this in my elderly house, that from which I knew, and not just me, the rest of the neighborhood knew, hey, These people are fucking devil worshippers, to put it that way. They're pagan worshippers, these Hindus. And they forgot, for example, to breathe. They forgot to hold up their end of the bargain. And what happened? Boom, their life went down the drain. They had money and everything, okay. They had like what, 3 gigantic houses. They lost every one of their houses, and they lost their sanity, along with the sanity of their children. All hell broke loose. And this is just an example of something in Hindu culture. If you're familiar with Hindu mythology, then you'll notice that a lot of their gods, this is just an example, again, I'm still on that example. A lot of their gods have snakes that wrap themselves around their necks or their waists or any other part of their body. But snakes are very important in Eastern culture, and that's also one of the reasons why these false gods manifest as snakes. They're not literally snakes, they're spirits that manifest as snakes. The same spirits that these Hindus are worshipping in order to get what they want. Again, I'm not kidding. I've seen this literally with my own 2 eyes, okay? I've seen, for example, some deity, some spirit literally just manifest in front of me in the form of a snake, and then boom, it just disappeared, poof. And I was like, oh God, that has to be the neighbor bullshitty thing again. That has to be the guy that neighbor works with. Okay. I was never bothered by any or pestered by any of them. Not that is possible or would be possible. But again, all of this is just an example. Stuff like this happens all over the globe, okay? This is just one example. This happens all over the globe, from Canada to Australia, from India to Brazil, you name it. But again, as you can see, the dangers of this are obvious, okay? And that deity is not only going to wreak havoc on your life, that spirit or that entity is going to literally dish out one hell of a punishment, which you will feel, and your generations that are to come will also experience that. And in the way of their lives just being nothing but pain and suffering. Either ending up in a nut house or staying poor the rest of your life, regardless of how hard you work, you name it, all of those things. That's one of the reasons why stuff like this, the occult in general, okay, in the West people are a lot more tolerant, but in third world countries, in shithole countries like this one, stuff like this is a taboo. And you'll have to excuse me, okay, if I repeat some of the things that I state in the article, but I just can't phrase it any differently. In any case, that's okay. I'm giving myself a break regarding that. And yeah, at this point you might ask yourself, what's the difference between worshipping a deity then and what I do? What's the difference between being a ceremonial magician or just being an occultist overall and worshipping a deity? Well, what I do is similar to engaging in business with someone. It's the entire system on which the world works. It's like going to the store. You basically pay the store owner and he gives you whatever product or item you wish to obtain. End of story. I give you something, you give me something, tit for tat. It's the same with the spirit. Whenever I work with a spirit, for example, a customer just approaches me, hey, I want to become wealthy, fine. I work with the spirit, I tell the spirit, okay, I'm going to give you this and this and this and this for this customer. Okay, see to it that you bring him as much money as you possibly can in accordance or in agreement with what I'm giving you, basically the equivalent of what I'm giving you. Just do the best that you can do, and that is all. We agree to those terms. If something goes wrong, we're flexible, because that's the way I am. I'm not going to bully or harass spirits, okay? You're just looking for trouble. You're just asking for trouble like that. They have to agree to that, and I also keep up my end of the bargain. And there's no problem. If there are any other minor details that need to be worked out, I can always discuss that with the guy that I'm working with, or the guy that I asked to help out that customer. My patron, for example, and my vice patron, more my patron, okay? The one whom I sworn my eternal loyalty to, that is like a marriage, okay? That's literally like being married to a woman, and you said, I literally, like they say at the altar in Western marriages, okay? I'm not familiar with other marriages, but in Western marriages, I hereby take you for richer and poorer, in sickness and in health. and so on and so forth, in good times as well as bad times and so on. With my patron, it's the same, only it's an extended version. This is even after I die physically, after I literally, my physical body withers away and I just die, I straight up die. I'll continue working with him, but in no way do I serve him. This is a business agreement that we have going, not just a business agreement, a personal agreement. I give him, I swear my loyalty to him, and I basically literally just share my life with him and my existence with him, and in return he gives me what I want, and he does the same thing up to a certain point, up to the point where he's allowed to do that, of course, by God himself or by anybody that he has to answer to. There's nobody higher than him as far as I know, so it's God. Yeah, so that is the difference. Okay, that's the difference. It's like dealing with a business associate. Even if I wanted to stop working with him, I could stop working with him. It's the same as a divorce. Okay, you'd have to, as long as you adhere to the conditions outlined, as long as you keep all the conditions in check, then you have nothing to worry about. Okay, if I want to stop working with him, not that that's going to happen, of course, but just for the sake of argument, if I wanted to stop working with him, then that would be realistically possible. I discuss the matter with him, I tell him why, you name it, and so on. Not that I have to, but just for the sake of politeness, I obviously tell him why. In the same way that you don't throw away a marriage that has lasted for 20 years because it's one hell of a waste. It's the same deal for me and him. I'm definitely not going to throw everything away. This is just for the sake of conversation. I have no intentions, nor will I ever have any intentions of breaking my vows to him. But just for the sake of argument again, even if I wanted to do that, I just talk to him and I tell him, for example, I don't want to work with you anymore, or for these reasons, and thank you for everything that you've done for me. I will always remember you, and nice words and everything, and kiss, kiss, greet, greet, goodbye, and so on. That's all. Both parties are in it because they want to, not because they're obligated to or feel anything like that. Okay? And that's just the way it works on a flexible basis. Okay? It's not something that you have to worry about excessively. Not that you have to worry about, it's not like walking on eggshells. You don't have to worry about, oh my God, I made one wrong move and all hell's gonna break loose now. He's going to take away everything that he gave me and my life is going to go down the drain. No, that's only something that happens if you really do something that is inexcusable. And most people that are bothered or pestered by stuff like that are people that treat spirits like absolute shit, okay? And that's why I'm against the way they treat, I'm so against the way they treat spirits in grimoires, okay? Because like the example that I gave, the Grand Grimoire, is in the Grand Grimoire, it's nothing more than a traditional workbook, and in that workbook, you're basically told to threaten Lucifer and Lucifer's Rofokal. If you don't give me what I want, I'm going to torture you. Okay, I'm going to hold this implement over this fire, and I am thereby going to torture you. Okay, I'm going to make you suffer and make you feel astral agony and pain until you submit to my wishes. That's literally like holding someone hostage and beating the shit out of that person. Okay, and saying, okay, make one false move and you're dead. What do you think is going to happen? That person is going to screw you over. That person is going to fuck you over. Sorry for the swearing. Pardon my French. That person is going to screw you over and is going to literally just try to undermine you and try to neutralize you the second he or she gets the chance. You're creating nothing but enemies like that. And it's the same thing, okay? They have to abide by rules too that the grimoire outlines, provided that those rules are correct. So they can't break those rules or those vows, because that's the way that the universe simply works. These are universal rules and laws that God has put in place. But believe me that the second that you even slip up, okay, Lucifer, for example, will literally be like this. Okay, you just make one false move, buddy boy. Just slip up even once and you're dead. And what do you think is going to happen? I mean, God, the very idea of treating any spirit like that just detests me. It's just appalling. In any case, but yeah, that is it. And stuff like this happens all over the world, okay? Believe me. I mean, I've seen movies, horror movies that were inspired by things like these, by acts like these. Asian horror movies in Japan, Korea, you name it, Thailand. Stuff like this happens all over the world, unfortunately. And yeah, it is possible to sell your soul to an entity, not literally your soul, but your astral and or physical body, to basically offer that up in the same way that a prostitute or a hooker offers her body up for pleasure, despite the fact that she doesn't want to. But I've already just outlined and described all the negativities and all the drawbacks that accompany such a deal. And I've already described what the difference is between what I do as a magician and what an occultist does in general, what a practitioner does that works with spirits towards a goal, and just making a deal with the devil. That's all.